Hey guys, Rick Stone here from Our Stony Acres. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today we are going to be doing a March planting guide for those of you that live in zones 7 and 8. Now, if you don't know what zone you live in, look in the description down below. There is a link to an article on our website that will get you hooked up with the appropriate governmental agency. You can put in your postal code and it will tell you what your gardening zone is. And if you happen to not be in zone 7 and 8, never fear. I've got all kinds of videos for you in the different zones, and all of those are linked down in the descriptions below. Okay? All right, so as you can see, weather is starting to warm up for us. We're actually in zone 6, but we've got a nice day, so I thought I'd come out and film these videos in the garden instead of out in the garage where I've been doing them for the past few months. And so it's nice to be out. It's nice to have the hope of spring coming. But for those of you that live in zone 7 and 8, spring is really rushing towards you, and you should be looking at your last frost date coming up, maybe towards the end of April, middle of April. And so we're really starting to need to be thinking about taking care of things out in the garden. So is what I'm going to do today in this video. Format is going to be, I'm going to go through zone 7 first and then zone 8. So if you'd like to skip, if you're in zone 8 and would like to skip forward a little bit, that's fine. I'm not offended, but we'll run through really quick the things that you should be planting both indoors and outdoors in your garden during March in zone 7 and 8. All right, so let's start with zone 7, and we're going to talk about a few things that you can be growing in particular outdoors right now. So these are things that you can be planting out in your garden if you live in zone 7. Things like lettuces. You can definitely be planting all of your lettuces and your leafy greens, all of your cole crops, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. All of those are going to be going in 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost, which ought to be somewhere around the middle of March for you guys. So you can be putting transplants of all of those out into your garden. If you haven't already planted your peas, you should definitely be planting your peas outside in your garden during the month of March. And then you've got some herbs that you can be planting in March, and most of these are going to be fairly frost hardy, and so you could go ahead and get them planted in March, and even if there was a little bit of frost on them, they're going to be okay. And that would be things like chives, dill, sage, thyme, and cilantro. Okay? And then indoors, those of you in zone 7, there are still things that you could be planting indoors. You definitely could be doing some tomatoes and peppers still indoors. It's maybe getting a little bit too late for peppers, but you could definitely be starting peppers indoors. And then you need to start thinking about when you're going to be getting your like squash, beans, melons, all of those kind of things could be planted indoors in zone 7. And those you're going to be planting roughly about 4 weeks before your last frost. So if your last frost is April 15th, you're probably going to be getting those started indoors on about March 15th, okay? So gauge everything based on your last frost date, but most of those warm season crops that don't like to be indoors as long, so all of the melons and cucumbers and squashes and things like that really only like to be indoors maybe 3 or 4 weeks before you transplant them out to the garden. So that means March is probably when you are going to be planting those indoors, okay? And you still could probably get away with planting some tomatoes, and they would probably be ready for you, especially if you hurry here at the first of the month and get them in. They should be ready for you when about the time your last frost comes along, okay? So that's zone 7. Now let's talk about zone 8. You guys are probably warming up really nicely. I would imagine that your last frost date is somewhere around the 1st of April, give or take a couple of weeks, but you really should be kind of getting into the the real cool season, and even starting into the warm season now. So indoors, you could definitely be starting things like green beans, eggplant, melons, squash. All of those you could be planting indoors and then transplanting them out. If your last frost has already come, then you could probably plant those directly out in the garden. But even if you still have a few more weeks until that frost comes, you can definitely be getting melons, squashes, cucumbers, all of those things planted indoors to get transplanted out here in just a few weeks, okay? And then outdoors, you guys have got a lot going on in zone 8 that you can be planting right now. So we're talking about things like broccoli, cabbage, kale, and cauliflower. All of those could be planted outdoors now as transplants. So not seeds, it's too late to plant seeds, but you could be planting transplants of those crops out into your garden right now during the month of March. And then you've got all kinds of seeds that you can be planting during March. You can be planting your beets, your carrots, your spinach, peas. You can probably still get away with planting peas this late. Lettuce is going to love growing this time of year. Kale, radishes, turnips, all of those can be planted. And then it's probably time as well for you to get some potatoes in. You might even be able to sneak some corn in as well, maybe just a week or so before your last frost date. So probably towards the end of the month, you might be able to sneak a little corn in. So lots of stuff. Zone 8, you're really in it right now. This is the time for you to be out in your garden and planting. So, all right. So that is all that I have for you for this time. And if I've missed anything, please leave it down in the comments below. I'd be happy to admit that I made a mistake. So put those down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And when you do that, click the notification bell so that you get notice of all the videos that we're going to be publishing. We're going to be doing some type of planting guide every month for the year 2020 for all of the different zone sets. So 7 and 8, those of you in 7 and 8 will have a planting guide every month this year for you. So, click that notification bell so that you get notice when those things come up, okay? All right, that is all I have for you for this week. Everybody have a great week. Enjoy your gardens. Get out there and have fun. Happy gardening.